Hello, folks. This is part 19 of Chasing Time Travelers. I'm still not sure if I'm going to switch gears later on and get to the more esoteric stuff, but maybe I will. It gets it gets way spookier than what you're seeing here with this map. So, as I mentioned before, this, uh, this structure you're looking at represents the Florida Peninsula. So the left would be the Gulf of Mexico, and the right side, you have to imagine this under, like, 4 feet of water or something like that. And then you start to get a sense of, how this map works. And you've got to remember that archaeologists and etc. have been changing the landscape at these places. Some of it is heartbreaking for me because I'm like, no, you're destroying the map that somebody gave us, right? But then I'm thinking, well, if they're time travelers, whatever, if they need it, they can go back and look at the map before it was messed up. But so let's move on from Florida. We're heading southwest from Washington D.C. basically. The American Southwest. Let's see. The first stop is drum roll. Okay, the Grand Canyon. Uh, the Grand Canyon replica at Chichen Itza is called the ossuary. It's very much like the Pyramid of Kukulkan, except it doesn't have the upper temple on the top. It's smaller. It has uh, it has serpents on all four sides, dual serpents on all four sides, and it has a hole in the at the top of it, a shaft. My theory is that that represents the Grand Canyon, and, obviously that's the Grand Canyon in the right hand side image. The Grand Canyon is basically a mountain with a hole in it. I know, partly because I've been there and camped out a little bit, and that's what they're showing you with the ossuary, a mountain with a hole in it. I'm calling it. If you look at the title, I'm calling it the Grand Canyon, and I'm calling this section the Grand Canyon and Kincaid's High Priest. Um, that's sort of a long story, but briefly, in the early 1900s, a guy was paddling down the Colorado River and saw an outcropping that looked strange, and he walked up there from his boat. He beached his boat. He climbed up and he saw a cave and went into the cave and found all sorts of like artifact. I'm sorry, how did that work? Yeah, he went into the cave and he found all sorts of mystical things, mummies and things like that. And it seems like some were Egyptian, but I'm not sure about that. Um, and I think he saw something fitting, some structure in like a a statue sitting with its legs folded, but I don't remember the significance of that. And I think he said he saw a lot of yellow on the floor or something like that. Um, anyway, that's what I mean by the high priest. So here's why I think this structure is telling us where Kincaid's tomb is, right? The tomb that he found. Because when you climb down the structure on the left, um, it's when you get to the ground level, it doesn't stop. It keeps going down. I think it's like 30 feet or so, and then it makes a turn, and then you follow that tunnel, and then it gets to this tomb, right? And and it had similar things as the stuff that Kincaid found on the right at the actual Grand Canyon in real life. And I think what they're showing us is how to get to Kincaid's tomb. Um, no one really knows how to get there today in terms of the real Grand Canyon, and because supposedly a long time ago the U.S. government, found ways to make it impossible to find. So there's the shaft at the Grand Canyon replica. Like I said, it's a mountain with a hole. So you climb down this thing, and then you go, and when you get to the bottom, you're so many feet below the surface of the ground, and then you follow that cave to the tomb of the high priest. One of the things that the Native Americans practice is dancing with feathers and Thunderbird costumes and things like that. Well, on top of the tomb that I say represents the Grand Canyon, there used to be half a dozen of the guys you see on the left. Um, so the far left photo was a good one. That's owned by Joel Skidmore, who gave me permission. And the two in the middle are from museums, and those are photos I took. Obviously, they're not really good. And the image on the far right is just something I'm using to compare. But these seem to be Thunderbird dancers. You see, they've got the eagle mask. Look at the far left. He's got the eagle mask on. He's got all these feathers. Um, these used to be on top of the Grand Canyon replica. There was also an owl man or two, which would take too long to explain. I don't think I have a picture. So let's leave the Grand Canyon, and it's over on the left-hand side of this image. My argument is that if you follow, we'll see, if you follow the Grand Canyon, it takes you to the meteor crater. The meteor crater takes you to this island thing that you see, which is the sort of the middle-looking structure. You can't see the meteor. Well, actually, you can see the meteor crater a little bit, but I'll show it to you in a moment for real, a better picture. And but my point is, you see this image on the far right? I think they're showing you Alamogordo. They're showing you where that bunker where the first nuclear explosion happened. So on the right, that's the Grand Canyon. On the left, that circle, that is the juxtaposition is perfect. It's exactly where we find the meteor crater in Winslow, Arizona. That's the only thing like this in all of Chichen Itza from what I've seen, and I haven't seen any others like this in any other Mayan cities, even though this probably one somewhere. So on the right is the real meteor crater at Winslow, Arizona. It's one of the largest in the world, and on the left is the replica at Chichen Itza. The juxtapositions are perfect. And then when we get to sort of in the vicinity of the temple of the Grand Canyon, they show us these two structures called the House of the Mestizos, and adjacent to that is the House of the Corn Grinders. Mestizos are Native Americans who are part Spaniard from the Spanish conquistadors being in the Americas, and House of Corn Grinders means people who make food out of ground corn. So think tacos, tortillas, etc. Right? My theory is that on the map they're showing us the old U.S.-Mexican border. Then we get to the House of Colorado. It's called the House of Colorado because of the red rocks, and which is why they call the state of Colorado that, and the Colorado Plateau. I suspect that what they're showing us here on the left is the Colorado Plateau with the society built on top of it. In other words, this thing on the bottom half of that house, that's the plateau, and the top of it is the society that was built on the plateau. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, parts of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. There's a lot more to this than what I'm telling you just for the sake of time. I can't. Adjacent to the House of Colorado, so look at the image on the right. The House of Colorado is to your left. We are looking north right now, and you see this ball court. The ball courts represent earthquake zones, rifts. So that particular ball court represents the Rio Grande Rift, which you see on the left-hand side in color. Look how they're shaped. Look how they're shaped. It's very similar, and that's no coincidence. So when you see a ball court, my theory is that when you see a ball court in a Mayan among some Mayan temples, they're telling you that this is a planet, and here's one of the earthquake zones. When I looked at Chichen Itza's, the way it's laid out, Chichen Itza's earthquake ball courts with what we know, there was an 80%, I was 80% correct. And I suspect that the one that I didn't get right, it's probably, there somewhere, just undetected. So again, here's the Rio Grande Rift, and so to the left of that, which would be west, that's the Colorado Plateau. When the Mayas are showing us the El Caracol, we're in Chaco Canyon, New Mexico now. They're talking about Fajada Butte on the right. That's why they both have that funny shape, that particular shape. Now look. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the same one. Sorry, El Caracol. And here's Fajada Butte. And on the right, you see one of the large kivas. On the left, that's a miniature kiva. I've stood in that thing. It's about 3, 4 feet in diameter. But they're letting you know you are in Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. And where you see that arrow, that's the baby kiva. These are the Spanish mission cities. We call this the nunnery at Chichen Itza. The nunnery and the church. That's the Spanish mission cities. That's the Southwest United States. Where you see a Kabzib on the left, they're showing us the Anasazi cliff dwellings. Why? Because that particular structure was built at the edge of a, in quote, steep, dry cenote. In other words, it's a cliff dwelling. And finally, I haven't seen the South America part of the map, but I'm convinced that what's known as the platform of the Great Turtle is supposed to be represents Easter Island. Thank you for listening. So that's the basics of the map theory. I just showed you Chichen Itza, and we'll talk more.